Young ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all. Once again, you are welcome here on the Tribune of Awakening. Consciousness. In the headlines of international news, on this Friday, February 28, 2025, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has just arrived on American soil. As announced, he has just arrived. But what we heard Zelensky say before he arrived in the United States of America, it's quite the opposite that we are going to see, since he said there was a working session that should take place this Friday in the United States of America, a working session with Donald Trump. So, while Donald Trump, and thus the White House, had announced that today was the day that should be signed. The historic agreement. Yes, the agreement on minerals. And we had to hear Zelensky say that. No, it's not primarily for the minerals agreement. There you have it. It's a working session, etc. But the White House is clear. It is categorical on that matter. So, despite everything that has been said, Zelensky arrived at the moment I am conducting the video conference. It is exactly Universal Time. He has arrived. He was greeted by President Donald Trump in a somewhat nonchalant manner. They went inside. There are a few journalists present. We are waiting to see what will happen. But for the moment, already, what needs to be said is that many observers are drawing the world's attention to make the world understand that the greatest theft in the history of the world is unfolding before our eyes. Yes, a great theft. Ukraine is being sold to America, to a president who has no mercy and who came with a very, very strong strategy. It must be acknowledged that Donald Trump came with a very strong strategy because he decided to no longer rearm Europe, to abandon Europe's security. The integration of Ukraine into NATO, he resolved that with a simple phrase by telling Ukraine, you must forget that, you must forget this NATO matter. That means it's impossible. So he puts Ukraine in a situation where Ukraine can do nothing but submit to the will of the United States of America. Since Europe, even the one Ukraine is relying on by default, Europe relies on America to ensure its security. And so he arrived. The US Secretary of State announces that it's to sign the agreement. He says it's to come for a working session. And what should be recalled is that just a few days ago, Donald Trump called Zelensky a dictator. But yesterday, when Donald Trump was asked why he called Zelensky a dictator, Donald Trump said what? He backpedaled. He says, did I say that? It's as if it wasn't him who said it. So there are many things revolving around this trip. And so in the context of this video conference, ladies and gentlemen, it is obviously about Zelensky's trip that we are going to talk. But before continuing, I ask you to share the video conference as much as possible. Share it in all possible groups. Give it lots of likes. And above all, don't forget we have our new channel specifically dedicated to education. The information in English, for all those who do not understand French well and understand English better, I highly recommend you go and subscribe. I leave the link in the description. Go ahead, subscribe. So young ladies and gentlemen, we are learning that this will be the greatest theft in history of humanity happening right before our eyes. Already, according to observers, the United States and Russia have put pressure on Zelensky to take Ukraine hostage. So the agreement on minerals, we learned that it will be signed if it hasn't been already. Since it's the first thing, he just arrives, he signs. If he refuses, what will happen? But everything is set up so that he can sign at the same time. So Volodymyr Zelensky is in Washington. There will therefore be no further negotiations on this issue, as was mentioned. It is an agreement on strategic minerals. oil and gas, as well as infrastructure assets. Here is the statement made by the senior official from the Fox Business Channel. There you go. And so, according to this gentleman called Bezant, the document will be favorable to both Washington and Kiev. So, we see there, someone like Donald Trump, who is eager for money, who wants at all costs to recover the money that America has funded behind this war, to demonstrate to the president, the former president Joe Biden, that he is for America and for the interest of Americans. He does all this also to show Americans that he is there to satisfy the interests of Americans. So he will take it by force. He will take then the other parts of the rare earths that are already occupied by Russia. He will deal with Russia. He will also recover that, since Russia is stable. So that's why, by the way, we have several reactions coming from everywhere. We have reactions coming from everywhere. And notably, we have the reaction of several from the side of Ukraine, notably the reaction of a former Ukrainian deputy who is not at all happy, who is denouncing because this agreement will untartan, to trap Ukraine. It will not help at all. Ukraine, ultimately, it is the Ukrainian people who will pay for this. But we don't know for the moment whether Zelensky will agree to sign this agreement. But everything is ready. The whole mechanism, all the documents are ready. Imagine that this document was shown to him at the Munich conference. He had refused to sign this document. This time, even though he announced that he is not going for that yet, that's why Donald Trump is inviting him not to engage in peace negotiation talks. No, it's primarily about this document on the mineral. So, as soon as it's signed now, all those involved in the talks, they will be able to speak. Since Donald Trump will have his conditions, to allow America to exploit this rare earth mineral, there must be peace in Ukraine. And so, here are things that will accelerate, that will hasten the advent of peace in Ukraine. Whatever happens, he has arrived. He was welcomed by Donald Trump. We will continue to follow. We will see what happens. There you go. In any case, it is a highly anticipated moment, and we will follow everything that results from it. We will come back to discuss it here on the Tribune of Awakening Consciousness. Thank you to everyone, dear ladies and gentlemen. I will be back shortly with new updates. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.